Hello, world and universe. Welcome to the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that like and subscribe button. And for all my continued followers, I want to say thank you. And this is an opinion-based video channel where I try to open your eyes and ears up to some of the travails and tribulations that take place throughout our cities, our states, our country, and sometimes around the world. And I got an explosive story to tell you that's based out of the state of Missouri, where the public defender's office hired a man, or has hired a man who was involved in the death of a young girl. So he went on trial, he pleaded out, and his co-conspirator actually got executed. And during that execution time, the other guy who pleaded out in this case of the unfortunate death of this young child ended up working in the state's public defender's office. You talk about conflict of interest. How did he get the job? It definitely is a situation of not what you know, but who you know. And there's been a public uproar in the state legislature about this as it got exposed. So let's go. State's public defender blasted. Office employed. Felon tied to child murder case. The state public defender's office came under fire from state lawmakers for employing a man convicted of 2 felonies in connection to the 2007 murder of his stepdaughter. The state worker under scrutiny, David Spears, received an 11-year prison sentence in 2012 after pleading guilty to child endangerment and hindering prosecution, both felonies in the death of 9-year-old Rowan Ford in southwest Missouri. Yes, 9 years old, and it's his stepdaughter. Listen to this story. Spears was released from prison on parole in March 2015 and began working for the state of Missouri the next year. He was paid $40,000, $842, last year as a secretary for the Missouri State Public Defender's Office, records show. His co-defendant in the case of the 9-year-old Rowan Ford's death, Christopher Collins, was executed in December after being convicted in Rowan's murder case. Joplin television station KODE spotlighted Spears' status as a public defender's office employee on December 3rd, the same day the state of Missouri executed Collins, his co-conspirator. Spears did not immediately respond to a message left on his work voicemail. In addition to employing Spears, the Missouri State Public Defender represented Collins during the appeals process, raising conflicts of interest concerns. So in addition to employing Spears, the Missouri State Public Defender represented Collins, the guy that got put to death, during the appeals process, which raised conflicts of interest. On Thursday, during a budget committee hearing, during a House Budget Committee hearing, Chairman Dirk Deaton, Republican from Seneca, Missouri, said the public defender at least insinuated in court filings perhaps some doubt on his Collins' conviction, or perhaps he should not have ultimately received the death sentence, because maybe we should be looking at Mr. Spears. He said it was insane. The public defender argued Collins shouldn't die because we know the guy who did it, because he works for us, talking about Spears. Deaton said he believes people deserve second chances, but that not everybody deserves to work for state government. Nobody's owed a taxpayer job. He called it one of the worst lapses in judgment he had ever seen. Mary Fox, director of the Missouri State Public Defender Office, responded, "I don't think anybody is owed a state job, but I will say that if a person is successfully performing, then there is not a reason to terminate. But with regard to Spears' employment, while the public defender represented Collins, the guy that got put to death, Fox said if she had been director at the time and been aware of that, it would have been a problem, the conflict of interest. She said she did not become aware of the conflict of interest until the time of Collins' execution. So he put this man to death. KODE, citing court statements, reported Stephen Reynolds, the district defender at the agency's Clayton office, is the one who hired Spears. Reynolds was married to Sharon Turlington, Spears' former trial attorney. Fox said the courts and the governor rejected allegations by Collins in his clemency petition, and they went forward with the execution. So remember now, Spears gets hired. Stephen Reynolds is the district defender at the agency's Clayton office, who was the one who hired Spears, and Reynolds is married to Sharon Turlington, who was Spears' trial attorney. It's all about who you know. She went on to say that Spears was not convicted of the murder and was not convicted of the essay assault. So here's the crime that was committed. Rowan's body was found in a cave 6 days after she went missing from her Stella, Missouri home on November 3rd, 2007. Police said she had been strangled. According to KODE, both Collins and Spears initially confessed to the murder and are, though Spears struck a plea deal and avoided harsher punishment. A transcript of Spears' statement to police, cited in the clemency petition, said Spears told police that Collins handed him a cord and Spears killed Rowan. He said, "I choked her with it. I realized she's gone. She's really, really gone," Spears said, according to the transcript. So he admitted to it. Meanwhile, court documents said it was Spears who led authorities to the sinkhole where the body was found. Spears. This is the guy that's working for the state public defender's office. Collins was a friend of Spears and lived with them for several months in 2007 at the home Rowan shared with her mother, Colleen Munson, and Spears. Collins, this is the guy that got put to death, told authorities that he had drank heavily and smoked marijuana with Spears and another man in the hours before the attack on Rowan. This is a 9-year-old girl, according to court records. Collins said he picked up the still sleeping child from her bed, took her to the camper where he lived, and essayed her. Collins planned to take Rowan back home, leading her outside the camper facing away from him so that she couldn't identify him, he said in his confession. But when moonlight lit up the darkness, Rowan was able to see Collins, he told police. He said he freaked out, grabbed a rope from a nearby pickup truck, and strangled her. Munson returned, so both of them are saying that they had committed this crime against this child. Munson returned home from work, this is the mom, Colleen, at 9 a.m. on November 3rd, and was alarmed when she couldn't find her daughter, walking the neighborhood looking for her. Court records said Spears insisted Rowan was at a friend's house, but when Rowan failed to return home by the afternoon, Colleen Munson called the police, prompting a massive search. Here were more lawmakers are weighing in on this case. A second state representative from Southwest Missouri, Representative Lane Robert, Republican from Joplin, expressed dissatisfaction with the agency's response to the letter he wrote in December. He had called for the commission to use all legal means to terminate Spears' employment and to develop hiring protocols that will ensure that such monumental foolishness in hiring decisions are prevented in the future. Roberts said there was nothing in the agency's response that would indicate that there was any effort whatsoever to find the means to terminate David Spears. Instead, what I got was an explanation of why you cannot do it and what clearly needs to be done, he said. Fox said in response to Robert's letter, the public defender determined there needs to be conflict of interest evaluations and that the chair of the commission needs to be notified if there's a bad report off of a background check during the hiring process. Robert said the agency's response was inadequate, saying the other members of the commission should have been included. He said he was angry enough that he would ask Deaton, the budget chairman, to consider an amendment rejecting a funding increase for the public defender's office request until such times as your policies allow the commission to weigh in on these decisions and they have a majority vote. The scorn for the public defender, which represents the state's indigent defendants in criminal cases, was bipartisan. So Democrats and Republicans do not agree with this hire. I'm a no on this entire budget book, said State Representative Rachel Prudy, a Democrat from Ferguson. I'm a no on this whole thing as long as this man is employed. What an incredible story. So you have this man, you have two men, Collins and Spears, that were involved in the death of a 9-year-old young lady back in 2007. And he takes a deal, Spears takes a deal, tells his story before Collins could tell his. Collins gets executed and put to death. Spears spends some time in prison, gets out, gets paroled, and then gets hired by the state of Missouri's public defender's office. You talk about a scenario of not what you know, but who you know. And here, making our legislators and our politicians accountable. These are the kinds of things that are taking place right under our noses as tax-paying citizens. I do not believe that this man, I think, is a complete conflict of interest, and it gives a terrible lens on hiring this man in a murder case and an assault case on a child. There is no way that the optics on this for the state of Missouri and his legal department should have never hired this man as part, once he got paroled. The optics on this looks terrible. Just from that standpoint alone, do people need to be given a second chance after making mistakes? Yes. But when you're talking about a murder conviction and an assault on this child who happened to be his stepdaughter, this is a very sad story, and there's no way in the world that I think the state of Missouri should have hired him, let alone in the legal public defender's office. He shouldn't be working for the state of Missouri at all. People who have felony convictions can't get food stamps, can't get housing just for one felony conviction, let alone the type of conviction that he's been associated with. So not only did the 9-year-old girl lose her life, but then his co-defendant, Collins, got executed while he was employed back in December. There is all kinds of hypocrisy and dichotomy involved in this situation, and I think Spears should have never been hired. Tell me what you think about this case out of the state of Missouri. This has been the Trevor Donald Experience. Manifest your truth.